Stocktake meeting, which is happening in Dubai. So she has delegated me to deliver an opening remarks on her behalf. But she sincerely apologizes because she was supposed to be here with us on this very important session. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this online workshop on the Enhanced Transparency Framework for the LDC group. I'm very glad to see you all today joining this call. I would like to thank the UNFCCC Secretariat, who are also with us here, for their support, and the LDC speakers who also share their experiences are also here. I'd also like to thank the national focal points who nominated delegates for this important meeting. We understand that you are all here because your national focal points nominated you. So the ETF is a new reporting framework under the Paris Agreement. It is designed to help countries to track and report their progress on climate action and to build mutual trust and confidence among countries. The ETF, as we are all aware, is complex, and it is important for LDCs to have a good understanding of the new rules and requirements and the main differences with the current reporting framework. We'll also discuss how we can build our current national systems to report under the Enhanced Transparency Framework. Several LDCs are in the process of preparing their biennial update reports, and we understand that some of LDCs have managed to submit at least one biennial update reports. It's around 2022. It's around 22 LDCs who have already submitted one. During this workshop, we will have the opportunity to learn from the experiences of these LDCs who has submitted at least one BUR. This will be a valuable opportunity to hear from other LDC experts. In addition to this, we are eager to learn about your needs as LDCs and gaps regarding the transparency reporting. As 2024 is fast approaching, we all need to be transitioning to the new reporting requirements under the ETF. So your input will be essential for informing further activities and capacity building plans for the group. This meeting is also important to expand and strengthen the LDC transparency network, promoting engagement among transparency experts and understanding priorities from LDC countries. So by working together, we can share our knowledge and expertise and support each other in meeting the requirements of the ETF. So the agenda and the moderation of this meeting is going to be moderated by myself. And thank you again for your participation, and we look forward to a productive and formative day today. And that's where the remarks which the chair delegated them to me to provide it to you. So once again, thank you for joining today, and your input will be very useful. I now invite Fernanda to share the housekeeping rules for this call to be effective. Thank you.
Thank you, Yamikani. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So this is a short presentation just to let you know, like maybe you already realized that we have interpretation today. So you have an icon on in the Zoom, it's like a world where you can choose the language, and also you can have the option to mute the original audio if it's bothering you. And And we have very few things to share with you. As you realized, I hope we are recording this meeting. The idea is then be able to share widely within the LDC experts. And this meeting is set up as a meeting, not a webinar, so we can be more interactive. But so please don't share the link in social media to avoid having disruptions. And also, please, if we know that Zoom takes a lot of bandwidth, so please close other applications, especially messaging ones, if you want to have a very good experience. And if you're going to talk, please, to help the interpretation, use a headset with a built-in microphone instead of earbuds, if possible. And these are the Zoom features, but I'm sure that you already know those. We have there to unmute yourself, the video, then the participants icon where you can rename yourself, which is very important for us, so we all know who is in the meeting. And we have the reactions button also, where you can just share your reactions or give feedback to the presenters. And this, to update your name, please, you can just go to participants, and then yes, sometimes you have different names, or so we know who is with us today. And yes, that's the instructions. And I think that's all. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, please let us know in the chat, and we will do our best to solve any issues. Thanks so much. Back to you, Yamikani.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fernanda, for the housekeeping rules. More importantly, to our French speakers, please choose your language properly so that you are able to understand the proceedings of the session. And now we proceed from the agenda. You might note that we have two key agenda items. The first one will be a presentation from the Secretariat. Then we'll have the question and answers. And then we'll have experience sharing session from the 3 LDC countries. So afterwards, we're also going to have question and answers to interact with our colleagues who have shared their experiences. So it's a short agenda, but I want to keep it so productive so that by the end of the session, we are all able to understand the enhanced transparency framework and then inform the next activities as we transition to the ETF. I now invite Alma Jean, who is from the UNFCCC Secretariat. Alma Jean leads the Biennial Update Reports Unit of the UNFCCC. Please, Alma, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me properly on
Yes,
this?
we can hear
Okay,
you.
thank you. So thank you for inviting us to be part of your meeting, and it's our pleasure to provide you with this information to guide you as you go forward. So as mentioned before, I'm the team lead and in the transparency division. And my team specifically supports developing countries specifically with the ICA process. When you submit your BURs, they come to my team, and this is where we conduct the technical analysis followed by the FSV. So I will be sharing with you on the enhanced transparency framework, just to provide you with a brief overview, the enhanced reporting elements, and of course, flexibilities. So what is this idea of transparency? What is this concept that is floating, this ETF? ETF is not new. It really builds on a number of key milestones over the years. And as you can see, I mean, some of them we've forgotten because they're so long ago, but these are some of the key milestones that have contributed to our transparency. One of the key ones is the Cancun agreements that you may recall, where the BURs, the guidelines and the agreement to submit BURs. Then, of course, we have RED Plus. We have the ICA, which was launched, and from there we had full swing ahead, Paris Agreement, the Katowice Rulebook, and the Glasgow outcome, where transparency was really crystallized in terms of the complete concept. And of course, as you may know, in 2024, the ETF framework will initially it will be implemented as parties submit their first BTRs. Transparency, I mentioned, is not new. Under the current MRV, there are a number of elements that exist as the basis for the transparency framework. In the center of my slide, you will see three key elements, and I've also put here the developed country aspect so you can see the comparison. But for developing countries, including SIDS and LDCs, the reporting requirement to the national communications, what we refer to as the NCs, the BURs, and the RED Plus. So these are the reports that countries currently prepare under the existing MRV. Then these reports are analyzed, the technical analysis. This is what happens here once you submit. And from there, we have the facilitative sharing of views, where your reports, you get a chance to inform the world basically of what you're doing, your climate actions, and your needs. Under the new regime with the ETF, the Enhanced Transparency Framework, the BTR will replace the BUR. So come December 2024, the 31st, all parties will be required to submit a BTR. The national communication will still continue, but the BRs from developed countries and BURs from developing countries, that will be superseded by the BTR. Once those BTRs are submitted, we have the technical expert review that is triggered, and this will replace the technical analysis of BURs and the review of BRNCs. Then the last stage is once the reports from the technical expert review are prepared, they're published, and then we go into the facilitative multilateral consideration of progress, which we have the FMCP. So the BTR, technical expert review, and the FMCP will supersede a lot of what we have under the current MRV. RED Plus, of course, for those of you to whom it's relevant, will continue to submit RED Plus technical annexes as part of your BTR. And of course, national communications will continue. So in terms of the architecture of the ETF, I've already introduced these three elements of reporting, the reports, the review, and the FMCP. But just to give you here a little bit more information on that. In terms of the report, what is contained in there? Of course, some of it is familiar to all of you. The greenhouse gas inventory, the progress on NDCs, and some countries, the developed countries, will be providing information on support provided and mobilized, whereas developing countries will report on the support needed and received. And of course, for those who choose to do so, the adaptation information. So this is what will be included in the reports. In terms of the review, the primary objective of the review, of course, is to see the consistency of the information that is reported as it aligns with the MPGs. So one of the new things we have is that your reports are going to be prepared based on the reporting provisions in a common modalities, procedures, and guidelines, which is the MPGs. So with these MPGs, the reporting provisions within those MPGs, the consistency will be based on these. The review will also look at the progress that parties are making in terms of the implementation of their climate actions and the achievement of the NDCs. In terms of, excuse me, okay, support provided, and then of course, identification of improvements and capacity building needs, which is one critical aspect of this. And here I want to say, in the submission of the reports and then the review process, the idea is to submit what you have, what is within your capacity. What we have observed over the years is that a lot of the reports are prepared by consultants and submitted. And then when we go through the technical analysis, those experts are no longer there. And so some of the countries have challenges in addressing some of the areas improvement and identifying capacity building needs. So I really want to reiterate here that when you submit reports, the review really has to see what is your capacity. So it's not about submitting the best report. It's about using the JEF funds that you receive efficiently to reflect your capacity, and at the same time to put in place what you need at the national level to prepare these reports. And areas of improvement and identification of capacity building needs is key. You may also know that with the reporting and review, we look at the flexibilities, and I'll address that in a few minutes. And from the review process, of course, the reports, and we go into this, the FMCP. Some of you may be familiar with the technical analysis, and then the FSV, which is a similar process. So, out of the slides I've presented, just to reiterate some key points, the ETF is about building on and enhancing what we have. It is based on the MRV under the convention. So it is building on that. Continuous improvement, to reiterate the point that it is what your capacity is nationally and not what the consultants produce. If consultants are producing your reports, you should be providing that information and enabling your national experts to understudy them, and then to ensure that in your QA/QC processes, your actual capacity is portrayed in those reports. And then what it identifies is those areas for improvement in the future, or those areas where you have gaps and require capacity building needs. The ETF and the whole process recognizes different starting points. And again, parties shouldn't be aiming to produce the best reports through consultants. It is what is possible with your capacity. Then we have the issue of flexibility. Flexibility in terms of what you can do, and then support provided in terms of resources and action and so on. So I want to build on the benefits of this transparency before I actually zoom into this flexibility. Nationally, of course, over the past year or two, the Secretariat has received many requests for meetings and engagements. And what we have done over the past few months is those heads of state meeting to have politicians, prime ministers, directors, and ministers actually being versed and understanding the issue of transparency. So one of the benefits of this transparency and the preparation that we are doing is the political acceptance. Your ministers, your prime ministers are looking at this now in the context of transparency, but for national benefit. Transparency, which also has the benefit for your national sustainable development. Out of that, a lot of policy information, because for this transparency regime, we have a lot of data and information being generated, and these inform transparency, your policy planning. And of course, access to support being mandated under the guidelines for developing countries. And as I mentioned earlier, building capacity in those various areas that are highlighted in the report, and of course, awareness. Internationally, to build trust so that other countries, other parties know what you are doing. You are also aware of what they are doing. You are meeting your obligations, and of course, ambition is enhanced and the support prioritized. So I want to then give you the entire picture, the framework of it. You've been hearing about the NDC, the ETF, the GST. Yamikani mentioned this morning that the chair has gone to the GST. So how does ETF link with GST and the NDCs? Firstly, we know that NDCs are going to be communicated. And of course, in 2020, we had a lot of updates. So both developed and developing countries are going to communicate NDCs. Secondly, we have the BTR, which parties will submit every 2 years. And these BTRs will have the essential information that will help the review to determine the progress that you've made. Progress in terms of your GHG, your emissions, how do you track progress for what's in your NDC, the impacts of adaptation, the support received and mobilized. So this information, these are the outputs that will be considered in the GST. As I mentioned, once the reports are reviewed, then you go for the FMCP. So in a nutshell, all of these, so the NDC, the BTR, these contribute as input to the GST process. So when you hear about the GST, just know that it's the reports that you submit that will inform the GST. So just some quick information for you. I will move on because I'm conscious of time. I want to spend a few minutes discussing flexibility and discretion for SIDS and LDCs. The only experience that developing countries have with transparency and so on is the ICA process. And that ICA process, the first step being the technical analysis. You will notice here that we have the distribution of developing countries who are not SIDS and LDCs, and 53 out of the 77 of them have submitted, so quite a few. I want to move to the right-hand side of the slide, which shows that out of the total group of LDCs and SIDS, 39 have submitted BURs and actually gone through the technical analysis process. I want to say that this is commendable. 46 LDCs in total, and 24 of you have gone through this process, and we really want to applaud it. You know, a lot of the parties, a lot of the experts tell us of the unknown, that they don't know what to expect, and we have really tried to demystify this whole transparency over the past few years. And so those who have not gone through it, we continue to encourage our parties to do that, although we are aware that the JEF funds have ceased and it's more preparation of the BTRs. For those who are ready and can do so, we encourage you to submit your BTRs as soon as possible, of course, by December 2024, noting that there's discretion for SIDS and LDCs on submitting. But you have the experience, share with each other, network with each other to share on these experiences. And for anybody else who'll be producing a BUR, we look forward to that. So this experience that we have had from these BUR submissions, from the MRV process, has really informed the flexibilities for developing countries with the ETF. And what do we mean by this flexibility? Flexibility in terms of the scope of reporting. What do you have to report? The frequency, how often, and of course, it's every 2 years. The level of detail and the scope of the review. These are the 4 key areas where flexibility will be considered. In the MPGs, the whole list of flexibility provisions are outlined. I won't go into them in detail here, but there's a later slide to reflect that. So those flexibilities apply to the individual flexibility provisions. The different provisions that are outlined for greenhouse gas inventories, for mitigation, for needs and support, for adaptation. What you must know is that these are self-determined. Parties will determine which provisions that they wish to exercise flexibility. Again, this applies to developing countries that need it in light of their capacities. And of course, the capacity constraints and the time frames for improvement, as I've mentioned before. So in the technical expert review, the teams also need to take into account these flexibilities. So it's very important for you in preparing your BTRs to indicate which reporting provisions that you choose to exercise flexibility. It is self-determined, and that is an underlying factor. So as we start, there's a recognition that countries have different starting points. Flexibility is important. Flexibility is your right, and it directly applies to developing countries that need it in terms of their flexibility. Use your flexibility, exercise that, identify those provisions where you wish to exercise that flexibility. Work with the teams to identify areas where you may have capacity building needs, areas where you would need improved reporting over time. Of course, we know that it will take some time for countries to get to, for all parties to operate under the same standards, now that we are working with one common set of guidelines. So that flexibility is important to address those gaps, improvements to bring parties to the same standard 2024 and beyond. Based on the experiences that we have had and the preparation that we are making, there is one key aspect that all countries, particularly developing countries, need to take into consideration. Sustainable reporting can only be done when you have the necessary institutional arrangements. That is absolutely critical. For each of the reporting areas under the BTR, it is advisable, encouraged, you know that we must have these institutions. And in your reports, you will also need to provide information on capacity building needs and, of course, institutional arrangements. The preparation of your inventory, tracking of progress, assessing the impacts, adaptation, loss and damage. All of these will require some form of institutionalization. And there are multiple benefits for that. I mean, I've listed it here. You will have this so you can read it later. Having that internal QA, QC process for collection of the data and information that you need, archiving this information and updating. So we know that parties have started, and that's great, that you can build on what you have, but there are also some who will need to start from scratch. It is absolutely critical, and we really want to encourage that, to establish those institutional arrangements to really help you with your reporting. I will gloss over some of the benefits that we have gotten from the current MRV, and of course, we just discussed them extensively. Domestic arrangements in terms of institutional arrangements, capacity, sharing that information, and of course, capacity building needs. Lastly, I want to share those areas where the information is new. As I mentioned from the onset, transparency is not new. So we speak about it being enhanced. In the center of my slide, you will see the areas for reporting in the BTRs. And I've put the asterisks for the areas which are new, that perhaps a bit more detailed. But as you can see, a lot of the information specifically for developing countries on the right side with the BURs, with the NCs, a lot of this information you would have. So there is an assumption that some form of institutional arrangements exist to report on this data. So in the BTRs, of course, this information will be enhanced. So there's nothing to fear. The ICA process has provided you, it has been a testing ground. These BURs have really been a test to help you prepare for this. But despite the fact that some have not prepared BURs, we learn from the lessons that others have done, and this is why it's important to share. So lastly, in terms of the reporting provisions, again, I'm not going to go into detail because they're listed in the MPGs. What I can say here is one of the major differences in the information to be reported is the legal nature. Under the MRV for the convention, developing countries did not have any mandatory reporting provisions. A lot of it was should to the extent possible, but under the MPGs, many of the reporting requirements are shall. There are reporting requirements where those flexibilities come into effect, and in the slide, they are in yellow. I'm just quickly glossing over it. You can have a chance to see. So in yellow, these are the reporting provisions where flexibility, you can choose to exercise flexibility in your reporting once it is clearly indicated where you choose to exercise those flexibilities. And the same for tracking progress, just to show you quite quickly here. Okay. So this information, and for here, it's just additional information for you on resources, knowledge products that you can access, the training courses that we have ongoing, how you can become a reviewer. And we really need reviewers for the increase in submissions that we are going to have. So this will give you an idea of how you can become an eligible member, and of course, additional resources. So with that, I'm sorry, I've tried to quickly go through it, and this ends my presentation. Back to you, Yamikani.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jean, for the elaborative presentation. It really covers everything to do with the enhanced transparency framework. And as you have mentioned, I think due to more shells, it's now popularly known as its more stringent reporting requirement, because it provides more legal basis for us to adequately report. And the flexibilities you have presented, they are very key for the LDCs, because that gives us a chance to start slowly aiming that there will be continuous improvement. And really thank you for that. And for the expert reviewers, as you are aware, the next session, which we have with next month, we'll solely focus on how we can increase the number of LDC reviewers. We don't want to be left behind. We understand the call to have more experts in the review process. So we also need to make sure that all the LDCs understand the review process. So for now, we will not invite the questions now. We can have the experience from other LDCs who have reported the BURs. As you have rightly mentioned, the BUR phase provides a good foundation for reporting under the ETF. So we can share the lessons from other LDCs. Then we have the questions and answers together with your presentation. So I now invite Benti from Ethiopia to share with us the lessons for their preparation of the BUR. Benti, you have the floor. I also encourage participants while we are having this presentation to be putting on in the chat the questions if you have any from the previous slide, then we can discuss over.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Let me check.
Yes, Benti, loud and clear.
Yeah, my name is Benti Firdissa from Ethiopia, working in Environmental Protection Authority. First of all, I would like to thank the coordinators and the facilitators for this opportunity to share the experience in developing the binomial update in Ethiopia. I'm sorry. I think my PowerPoint is not moving.
Yes, thank you. Can you stop sharing, and then Fernanda or Anna, you can share it from that side.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not moving.
I can share it, Benti. Just give me 1 second and I'll bring it up.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the next slide. Yeah, this is my outline that I will go through, and I will brief introduction, data source, institutional arrangement, methodology and approach, and also the challenges and the lesson learning, and also the ETF and the BTR will bring for us. So next slide. Ethiopia ratifies the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 1994. Following this, the country developed or prepared and submitted the first national communication in 2001, second national communication in 2015, and the third national communication in 2023. And now we finalize the first binomial update, and it's under the process for the submission, and also other reports like the forest reference levels and indices and other policies and strategies. Next slide. In developing the binomial update, our data source is we identify the economic sectors, which are really the main emitters of the greenhouse gas emissions. And we prepare the memorandum of understanding with those sectors. And we sign the memorandum of understanding, and annually we collect the activity data, and we prepare the annual report, and we compile and use for the national communication report and also for the binomial update report. In addition to this, we have an MOU with the universities, especially the 2 universities, to do with the quality assurance and the quality control check. Next slide. So in the data collection, this is our institutional arrangement. This institutional arrangement will be used for the data collections and for the report preparation. We have the technical working groups, which is nominated officially from the identified economic sectors. And this nationally established team of experts will facilitate the activity data from their each line ministries, and then they collect the activity data as per their as per the MOU, and then they sent for the Environmental Protection Authority. The Environmental Authority or Environmental Protection Authority or the MRV director will compile and prepare the national reports for the national conception and international conceptions, and then sent for the Ministry of Planning and Development with the DNA for the UNFCCC, and so the Ministry of Planning and Development will send the national reports to the UNFCCC. In this institutional arrangement, we also engage the private sectors because we do an assessment which private sector is doing on which sectors, regardless of the MRV, and then we coordinate, and the report should be sent for the line ministries. For instance, if one private sector is working on the energy sector, so they should have to report annually for Ministry of Water and Energy. And if they are working on the agriculture, they should have to report annually for Ministry of Agriculture. So this is just to avoid the double counting of greenhouse gas emission. Next slide. When we come to the methodology, except the livestock key category and the forest sector, we are using the Tier 1 approach methodology, which is just using the default value of East Africa. And for the livestock and the forest sector, we develop our country-specific emission factor, and then we use for the calculation or for developing the report. We consider the main gases, the greenhouse gas, main greenhouse gases like the methane, nitrous oxide, and the carbon dioxide emissions is the report. And we use the IP software version 2.69, and also we do the key category analysis, the uncertainty analysis, and the quality control and the quality assurance with the universities. Next slide. In developing this binomial update, there are different challenges that we are faced, especially coordination of the institutions, vertically and horizontally, especially when we collect the energy sectors and the follow sectors activity data, because these two sectors are needs the collaboration of different sectors and coordination of different sectors. So this is just the challenges that we are faced when we are collecting the activity data. The other challenge that we face is the limitation of the skills on the greenhouse gas emission projections. So this is just handled by recruiting the technical assistances from the abroad. So this is a very challenging for the technical local expertise. The other issue what we face is just the data management systems. This is very challenging, and because because of the continuous restructuring of the organization, there is missing data for the institution. So getting reliable data is very challenging, and this is just the main challenge that we face. The lesson learning, while we are developing this binomial update, we are trying to engage those national technical working groups through the process of the development of the national binomial update report. While this development of the report, they increase their knowledge in greenhouse gas inventories, how the data is collected and where do we collect, and how to use IP softwares, and how can we analyze the key category analysis, the uncertainty analysis, and the quality controls and the quality assurance. So this is just hands-on training also given while we are developing this report. Next slide. The innovations in ETF and the BTR will bring for us, we are expect to familiarize with the ETF and the binomial transparency report tools, like the common reporting formats, the common reporting tables, and the necessary information to track the progress made in the implementation of or achievements of the NDC. And also, we are looking to get the skill on how finance needed and received will be tracked in the system, because identification of the finance needed for the climate change implementation from the government is very challenging. So we need to also enhance our the capacity how we can how the finance needed and received will be tracked in the system. And also we'll look to have the skill on climate change impact measurement tools like the adaptation issues and the loss and the damage issues. We also just overcome the challenges, the limited technical skills gaps on the whole BTR development processes. Next slide. Just I would like to share on progress activities. We develop the data management systems by the technical and the financial support of the European Unions. This is just a very, very important tool for us. And in this, we have, we give a different privilege for the hierarchy of the governmental chain of command, because the Warada is just only have the privilege to encode the activity data, and then sent for the zones. And as these zones will be just check the activity data and sent for the regions. And the regions also then check and sent for the line ministries. So these line ministries will again check and compile the reports and sent for the environmental protection authorities. So the environmental protection authority will the mandate to coordinate and compile and prepare the national reports for the international and national conceptions. In this development, we have different projects like the CBIT project, which is basically doing on the institutional and the technical capacity enhancement. So we are doing on that. And we are also doing with the ICAT projects, especially on the GASMO model, the GASMO models, and how our country will be benefited from the Article 6. And we are also doing with the FAO to mobilize the finance for the development of BTR. Next slide. Thank you very much. This is what I have.
Yeah, thank you very much, Benti, for sharing experience on how Ethiopia has reported over the years. They are quite useful insights in your presentation, including the institutional arrangements, how you have set up your institutional arrangements, and how you are utilizing several supports, including the CBIT and ICAT, to enhance your capacity under the ETF. So the next slide is a recorded presentation from Bhutan. I invite Elaine to share the pre-recorded presentation. Thank you. Elaine, we can't hear the sound.
Apologies, I'm just figuring out, let me just unmute and start again. Bear with me.
Now I request Chair to Hello, good morning, good evening, Madam Madeline, Chair LDC, distinguished participants, both in person and virtual. On behalf of Department of Environment and Climate Change Bhutan, it is my honor to present our biennial update report preparation journey to this scheduled webinar. Now, without further ado, let me directly walk you through my presentation. Now, I request Chair to allow me to speak with video off mode. Thank you, Chair. Here, I will focus on three key elements which significantly went through while preparing our BUR document. First, in the preparation process, it is important to reflect on background on how and when the process kick-started, then followed by team composition, which is technically imperative and critical part for the process. Of course, consultation and review component obviously brings engagement and attainment of data accuracy and completeness. Secondly, on challenges and opportunities, as we all know, challenges comes only when we respond in anything else. Likewise, being LDC country under circumstances of low capacity and limited resources, we face difficulty. On the other hand, tackling of those challenges is an opportunity to move to next level in building resilience of our society, in expressing our support needs through climate action in the reporting system. Lastly, briefly on way forward in enhancing viewer in transition to enhanced transparency framework, in short, ETF. Now on this slide, before I explain on background, let me make clear that I'll not explain elements and components contained in the document as it is self-explicit following requirements of Paris Agreement to Convention. However, let me do justice by highlighting update on GHG inventory part. Our BUR updated information contained in our third national communication, in short TNC, with information period from 2016 to 2020. Let me draw your attention that BUR reflects net GHG emission in 2020 was 6,790.21 gigagram of CO2 equivalent as compared to TNC with 5,572 gigagram of CO2 equivalent for the inventory period from 2000 to 2015. Now, coming to the background part, process of preparation was launched in 2015 during a high-level seminar on dialogue on climate resilience and carbon neutral development. However, Bhutan could only started preparation in 2017, supported by JEF through UNEP, with total financial amount of $350,000. The erstwhile National Environment Commission Secretariat to National Environment Commission NEC, lead the preparation of the document in collaboration and unwavering support from relevant sectors. The preparation has been a long way as it underwent rigorous consultative process. Now, regarding team composition, Climate Change Working Group, in short CCWG, was formed following IPCC category sectors. This is a technical working group, representation from diverse sectors, including private sectors, NGOs, CSOs, and government agencies. As I mentioned earlier, following were CCWG members, and they have immensely contributed in crafting our first viewer in close coordination with our national expert. As led by NEC with engagement of CCWG fully for their technical and inputs and relying on the national consultant expertise, underwent a rigorous round of consultation at both regional and national level. Number of workshops, seminars were conducted with participation from stakeholders to gather inputs based on reporting elements. To enhance preparation process, trainings were conducted both in person and hybrid mode through guidance and support from the UNFCCC. On drafting and review, the drafting of document initiated after having gathered all data and information from 9 sectors. The CCWG technically led in drafting document in liaising with the national consultant. The draft being shared with all the relevant stakeholders for their comments and feedback, and accordingly reviewed by the core team. Further, the document being reviewed seeking international consultant. Thereafter, final version of the document being reviewed and endorsed by a higher level of committee called Climate Change Coordination Committee, in short C4, which is represented by a pool of government technical agencies. Finally, the document became official with endorsement from National Environment Commission, the highest decision-making and coordinating body on all the matters relating to protection, conservation, and improvement of the natural environment. Next, on challenges and opportunities front, certainly challenges are always there, and the preparation of our viewer unfortunately went through situation of COVID-19 crisis. Since then, restriction on travel and mass gatherings affected the delivery of the project output, especially on learning and capacity building program. Another challenge was inadequate capacity in reporting. This centered on unavailability of consistent and reliable data, compounded by limited resources. Moreover, constraints and barriers still exist at the institutional level to meet the standard requirements of the ETF of the Paris Agreement. There is existing MRV system transitioning to MPG of the ETF. As I mentioned above, unavailability of consistent and reliable data. This is because currently we don't have formalized institution set up where all IPCC sectors could update their data periodically in maintaining institutional memory. Instead, we do compilation and generation of data as and when reporting essentially deemed. Other gap is that currently we do not have our country-specific emission factor, so we rely on default factor that reduces level of certainty and completeness. Having on country-specific emission factor will advances data accuracy and attain high level of certainty. Being in LDC status, major concerns are lack of financial resources, technology, research, and human capacity development. Also, Positioning of our country in Eastern Himalayan range with characteristic of fragile mountains is highly vulnerable to impacts of climate change. This factor further impedes capacity and resource mobilization. Now, allow me to point out some of opportunities apart from narrating challenges that we encountered during formulation of BR. Number one, it is an entry point to seek international support to implement mitigation and adaptation measures to cope with climate crisis. Having a concrete updated GHG emission report enables to devise timely intervention to offset emission. So it amplifies our carbon neutral commitment as carbon neutral pledge reaffirmed in COP26 by joining the exclusive group called the Coalition of the Carbon Negative Countries. Now, let me wrap up my presentation with way forward. I think it is worth to mention here that Bhutan graduation from LDC doesn't mean that we are adequately equipped in terms of financial, technology, and capacity requirement. Strong commitment to climate response will leverage on efficient resource mobilization and strengthen transparency of climate action in line with ETF of the Paris Agreement. With this, I end up my presentation. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. That was Tashi from Bhutan presenting with a pre-recorded presentation. And as you have seen here, there's quite a lot of interesting challenges and opportunities coming out. Already, I can point out on the issue of country-specific emission factors, which, as they have mentioned, they haven't done any, while our colleagues from Ethiopia have done some country-specific emission factors. So I think it's a way where we can learn from each other and see how best of us can develop country-specific emission factors and then being able to report in an adequate manner. I now invite the last presenter from Lesotho. Tsekoa, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you, Idriss. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Makanule Tsekoa from Lesotho. I work for the Lesotho Meteorological Services in the Ministry of Defense, National Security, and Environment. So I'm from the Climate Change Unit. So I'll be sharing with you a very short presentation indeed. With regard to our preparation to the first BUR, and it was only our first and last BUR, which is submitted in 2021. So there are a number of documents which Lesotho prepared and submitted to COP, to UNFCCC. We have 3 national communications which have been submitted, and we are in the process of developing the 4th one. We are also in the process of developing the first biennial transparency report. And I think we developed also the National Climate Change Policy in 2017, as well as its implementation strategy. So there are a number of documents that we have produced, including the NDC. We are currently about to complete the second at the review of the NDC, which we submitted in 2017. So I'm trying to move my slide. It looks like it's not moving. Let me try and see if I'm winning.
If you prefer, we can if it's
it looks like
okay.
now it's
Okay.
solved. Thank you very much.
No,
So
you're
I'm going
welcome.
to present our national context as well as the try to give us the results we had from the GHG inventory, as well as the mitigation actions and their effects, which we had from the BUR, and try to dive into the ETF transition and where are we in terms of its implementation so far. At that time, this is the institutional arrangement we had under the BUR. We didn't have any legal framework except that we ended up having some memorandum of understanding with institutions responsible for data provision. So at that time, we were under the Ministry of Energy and Meteorology. As I've said, now things have changed. We are under the Ministry of Defense, National Security, and the Environment. So the institutional arrangement was that we have leaders for each sector, and then we have a technical working group for each 4 sectors. So the leaders of each sector were from our ministry, and then we tried to coordinate data collection from other ministries, as well as capacitating them on which data requirements we are looking for. So we had a national consultant coordinating the whole exercise and providing capacity building to each and every technical working group. So we used the tier 1 method to develop the greenhouse gas inventory for all the sectors, but towards the end, I will try to share an improvement of which we have done so far. So there was some improvement on the 2 sectors. I think it is the waste. In the previous reportings, we didn't have data for the solid waste. We have been reporting on clinical waste and wastewater treatment. But for this one, there was an improvement in data collection with regard to solid waste. There was also an improvement on the IPPU sector, as previously we never had emissions from this sector, since its data collection was a bit problematic, but we managed to get some data on refrigerators as well as the air conditioners. So it was our first time to have emissions under this sector. And there are other improvements from the energy as well as the AFUL, as you would see in the upcoming slides. So we were working hand in hand with what we have established since 2013, which we call the National Climate Change Committee, where we usually report progress and they monitor our implementation of climate change issues. So we also tried to develop a domestic MRV system, which we thought maybe it will meet the requirement of UNFCCC reporting. We are trying to enhance the GHG emissions as well as the impacts of adaptation, because we learned from the previous reporting previous reports that each time we start implementation of development of a GHG, we realize that we do not have the availability of the previous data, so we start from scratch. So we wanted to use this tool to keep the data that we have used for the next GHG inventory. So I believe these are the results of the GHG that we produced from the BUR in those 4 sectors, and the emissions were attributed to the increase in population growth, as well as the economic growth, including the energy demand, as well as the agriculture activities which were happening in Lesotho to have this sort of increase in the emissions. But you could see from the graph that you hardly see the emissions from the IPPU because they are very, very small. As you can see from the table that their values are almost at zero or within the 20s values. So they're a bit small compared to the emissions from Afulu and the energy. So, like I've said, we have produced a number of policies and strategies. I think I started with them that we had the NDC, the National Climate Change Policy and the Implementation Strategy, the National Forestry Policy, the Lesotho Energy Policy, and others. So these are some of the reports that we have produced. However, there is one big regulatory framework which is missing here, which I'm going to talk about as we move on, that will enhance our legislative and regulatory framework. But we have just produced the policies and the strategies. And these are some of the mitigation actions which we identified under the BUR. We had 8 under Energy 1, which is already existing, a CDM project, which is registered under the Kyoto Protocol. We had 2 under Afulu, 1 under Waste, and then I tried to identify 5 numbers, and it's an improvement on our reporting system that this time around we had nationally appropriate mitigation actions being identified. So if you could implement those mitigation actions, then you will see that we are going to have emission reduction of about 360,638 tons of CO2 per year. So this was an improvement of what we have been reporting. We've never had numbers before. So this is our first time we produced that. So in terms of going forward, transiting to the ETF, we have already secured support from CBIT to develop what we call enabling Lesotho's enhanced transparency framework, which is going to strengthen what we already have, the institutional arrangement, as well as the legal framework. So this project is going to develop a Climate Change Act, which is going to strengthen our reporting and obligation towards implementation of the ETF. It is also going to develop an MRV system for the NDC tracking and other aspects like financial flow, capacity building needs and supported and other stuff. Is going to be a web-based MRV system, which users we reported under the MRV are going to provide data using this tool. So we're gonna keep track of what's happening from other stakeholders. We have also got support from Jeff to develop the combined 4th national communication, as well as the first biennial transparency report. And we have just finalized the project implementation plan, which was submitted to UNEP for approval. So we believe with this, we are ready to start implementation of this 2 interlinked project. The last one which we have completed was the development of the GAG inventory for the livestock. In particular, under livestock, we were looking at cattle. So it was an improvement on our GAG inventory because we were using tier 2 method. So we had to estimate or come up with our emission factors for the cattle. So with this experience, I believe we are going to use it again to enhance our livestock GAG inventory, maybe look at sheep, how we can improve the tier using tier 2. As I mentioned earlier, all our GAG emissions have been using tier 1. So this is an improvement that we now have a GHG inventory for cattle since 1994 to 2022, which is an improvement, a very big improvement, which we are going to work on as our baseline as we are improving our ETF. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I believe this is my last slide that I wanted to share with you. Thank you. Oh, this is the last one, is the enhanced institutional arrangement under the transparency, whereby the orange color, that's where we will have the Climate Change Act once it has been enacted by Parliament to enhance our coordination from the cabinet to the units or the working groups. And we are also going to establish a climate change transparency unit within the climate change unit. We already have the climate change unit, so we are going to dedicate a unit for dealing with a transparency issue, which is going to coordinate the national communications, the BTR, the NDC tracking, the technology needs assessment, as well as the MRV, such that these other technical groups, once they meet to collect data, this unit has all the information, because it is linked with data providers using the MRV, that the web-based MRV that we have produced. And we are going to have some units which is going to deal with policy and finance, another one dealing with outreach. We are also dealing with adaptation and mitigation. So these units are going to carry out some roles in the technical units as depicted by this proposed institutional arrangement. So this is also an enhancement of what we have been using from the previous report. So we believe this structure is going to help us to implement the transparency for Lesotho. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tekoa, for sharing the experience of Lesotho. It was indeed wonderful at the SBs, where we saw Lesotho presenting under the ICA. That's the facilitative sharing of views, and we were encouraged, and as such, even Malawi, we are hoping that we are going to present under the facilitative sharing of views at COP28. We also undergone the technical analysis, and it was finalized, and now we are making arrangements to present our BUR at the FOSVs, and that we also learned from you on the way you did at the last SBs, and thank you for that. And indeed, with the ministry now being Minister of Defense, I think you have an upper hand because nobody will be failing to provide you with data as you have now all the powers under the Minister of Defense. Yeah, so colleagues, that's the end of presentations. We now go to the question and answer. We have seen some of you, we have already started providing some questions in the chat, which the presenters have already started responding to them. So we'll proceed from there. And indeed, thank you very much, all the presenters, for the insights, and indeed for setting the scene to this discussion. I now invite Jean to start responding to some of the questions which were raised to her. So Jean, you have the floor.
Yes, Yamikani. So I answered some of the questions in the chat, but just to confirm. So what are the main problems that explain why so few LDCs and SIDS have been able to submit their BURs? So one of the key things then would be the lack of capacity, lack of technical capacity to produce these reports, to issues with data availability, reliable data, the fact that some ministries have data and are not sharing. We also got one of the key things was the high turnover when staff are trained and are competent in an area, they move to different areas, even sometimes international agencies. So that capacity is lacking. So these were the two main things: that technical capacity to do the work, to generate that information, the data availability, data sharing, and that ability to access the data, and of course on technical staff. The second one here, if I've understood correctly, the BTR will be drawn up every 2 years and will precede the BURs also to be drawn. Okay, so the timetable. So just to clarify, once December 31st, 2004 hits, parties should be submitting only BTRs. But we understand that SIDS and LDCs can submit at their discretion, and some of the SIDS and LDCs want to have the experience of the BUR before. So if that is the case, then yes, we understand. But we would still like to encourage BTR submission because the level of support would still be there. And even if a party has not gone through the BUR technical analysis, we are going to be there to support. So you will not be disadvantaged, although the BUR submission would help you. So you will not need to submit 2 reports. It's either or, noting that some parties still want to submit one last BUR. So what does FTC so FTC is used to as the acronym for financial and technical support and capacity building. So FTC is finance, technical and capacity building needs. This is what it stands for. And of course, technology as well. FMCP, who is doing it? The FMCP, the Secretariat has the mandate to facilitate the FMCP. Every country who has gone through the review, the TER, once the report is published, that party will automatically be identified as one of those who will go through the FMCP. There was a question there. Is it a requirement to validate the BTR? I'd like a bit more clarification just to ensure that I've understood correctly. I believe these I think these are what Fernanda has put for me. I'm happy to answer anything else that may come up. Thanks. Back to you, Yamikani.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jean, for responding to the questions. Now invite Benti. There are also some questions for Benti. Can you respond?
Yeah, thank you very much, Yamikani. I actually try to respond on the chat. The first question I see is just how the universities will be work with the government. So what we did is just because of the turnover, we are just trying to shift even the national communication and the binomial update and also other climate action policies to develop and to work with the universities because they are somewhat stable when we just compare with the line ministry's expertise. So we are just even the certain national communication will be just developed by Addis Ababa University, which is working with us. So what we did is just we give the capacity building for the universities, especially on the IPCC guidelines, the softwares and other UNFCCC requirements. And then we prepare the MOU just specifically on the quality assurance and the quality control issues. And then after we just develop the reports, then we send for the universities just to do on the quality assurance and the quality controls. Then after just we incorporate the comments and send for the UNFCCC.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, proceed.
So this is just how we just work with the universities. The second question maybe is just how would how the ETF unit will be legalized in the institutional arrangement. It says so. What we did here is we write a letter officially for the economic sectors to nominate their 2 experts from each line ministries. So these two experts will represent the line ministries, and then when we develop or prepare the binomial update or any national communications, we engage them because they are constantly just the national technical working group, because they establish officially, and then after the development of this binomial update, they can review all the processes. They engage in the process, and then they check also all the activity data and the procedures, and then they take also the on-hand training. And then after that, we just the technical working group also sent and review the reviewed documents for the national coordinator entities, which means the environmental protection authorities. This is just the procedure. How can we use the national technical working groups? I think this is just the 2 questions that maybe raised from my side. If there is any other questions, I will come back, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Benti. We can take 2 to 3 more questions by raising your hand, please. Can you raise your hand? Anyone who will take the floor? Musa, you have the floor.
Hi everyone, and thank you for this. For this opportunity. Okay. As I say, in the chat, there are some countries that have not yet submitted their first BER. Yes, with all that it contains that as the ICA process. So as you know, as you know, soon 2024, but where country must submit their first barrier on transparency too. So so what should these countries do? Even that they say it's not punitive. If one country don't submit their first barrier, in 2024 they have to submit their first BTR report. So
thank you so much, Musa.
thank you.
We invite Jean to respond, but now we can have the 2 hands while she's preparing to respond to that. Can I have Dr. San? Dr. Sanwin? You are muted.
Okay, so can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. I have some questions on the reporting periods. So I heard Jean's explanation that LDC should submit their BUR by 2024 and followed by the BTR as soon as possible. Is it correct? And another question is that we are still trying to complete our SNC report. it's about 70% completed. And another point is that for the BUR, so we are just very initial stage for that. So in that case, how should we, or how should we work to complete or to meet the process? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Libase, please.
Thank you, Yamikani, for giving me the floor. I asked on the platform so far. First, I would like to thank very much all the presenters. They gave a lot of information that is really on time, and it can help those who help countries to move ahead. So thank you. I asked the question so far in the platform, asking if these presentations will be shared. And I'm not sure if it is answered already. I was not, sorry. The second thing is the relationship between the common reporting format and the ETF, this link with what is going on in the reports. And so I asked that question also. Another suggestion I would like to do is in a webinar like that, it is important to give more time to the interaction, between the presenter or the two presenters with the community. We have a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of us want to say something, want to ask for more clarification, because it's a need. Even for some questions, I have seen an answer on the platform saying that we will try to find out how to get information to answer to this question. That means it's a process that is going on, and a lot of aspects of that process are still under discussion, and nothing is already settled. So there is a need maybe to give more, even creating a webinar that will be only interaction between the people who ask effective questions on the effective thing that they are doing, and want to move on faster. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Libase, for the useful feedback. I think I will take that approach in the next webinars. As we mentioned, the plan is to have more webinars. And as you have mentioned, at least on the negotiation side, we finished all the negotiation on enhanced transparency framework. The loose book is complete now. That's why moving forward, we'll have more interactions, more engagement, so that all the LDCs have an equal understanding of what ETF is, including the common tabular formats. We're going to be going in detail on each provision so that we understand deeply and ready for reporting. And also, in responding to Dr. Sani's question, I think Jean explained several times that currently, under the convention, we are reporting the national communication and BURs. So, under the Paris Agreement in the ETF, only the BTR will replace the BUR. The national communication will be there. So national communications will continue. Now, how will the replacement happen in terms of the BTR and the BUR? It's now the timeline, which Jean mentioned, that the last BUR for developing countries is expected to be in 2024. However, due to the flexibilities for us LDCs, we are not strictly obliged to report the first BTR by 2024, meaning that we still have time to submit the BUR we are working on now. So, Dr. San, we encourage you to finalize the BUR you are working on now, including the national communication, then you submit. For the first BTR, you can submit even later than 2024 because we are submitting by 2024 at our discretion. So we have the flexibility to submit even later, 2025, 2026, but that doesn't limit us to not start the actual processes. I'm happy to hear that most of our countries already, we have started preparing the first BTR. We are requesting resources to the JEF to start the process for doing the first BTR. And that's the case we have heard from Lesotho, Malawi is also doing the same, Ethiopia and many others. So the BRs, let's continue the national communication to submit, but later we consider going into the first BTR. I now invite Jean on the first question, which was asked strictly for you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Yamikani, yes, I think you have clarified the BUR BTR submission. We are encouraging countries, if your BUR is in the process, the experience will really be invaluable for you with the BTR preparation. So the Secretariat remains ready to address any questions, any assistance that you may need, because we have different mechanisms to do so. We have through the CGE, we also have a support unit. So we are available to do that. Libas asked about the CRT, ETF, TNA. All of these, Libas, are actually part and parcel of the reporting for BTR. The CRT, these are actually the tables that are going to be used to report the greenhouse gas inventory. So we have the CRT, we have the CTF. So these are tables to report on, and these are outlined in the MPGs. I think it's also important for those working on the reports to be familiar with the reporting provisions, the guidelines. So all of these are actually information that will be reported in the BTR. Also, your TNA, the technology needs assessment, in the BTR, parties will also be requested to put needs and support. So if you have technology needs that you need support, all of this. So this BTR is really the vehicle not only for your climate action, but for the needs that you may have. So that's that. So I understand from Dr. Sin that the report is in process, and fine that we go ahead with that. What should be done? Yes, I think Yamikani clarified about the BUR and BTR. Anything else that we haven't? I took a note of this, but Yamikani, anything else that I should ask, I should respond to?
Yes, thank you. I think you have responded everything, unless there are another question. And specifically about the presentations, I think we'll share with all the participants the presentation so that you have them handy and reference them whenever you need. So we'll share with you all the presentations. So don't worry about that. So I don't see any hand. Yes,
Yamikani, and I really don't want those here to be confused with the BUR and BTR, because I see it. I mean, because they are really, right now, we are in the convention phase, and this is where BURs are being prepared. And so we have been encouraging parties to submit those BURs to get that experience. However, if a party feels that from the lessons learned and from shared experiences, it can actually go ahead and prepare the first BTR, that is the priority. And like I said, submitting the BTR is not about submitting your best. It's submitting according to your capacity. And one of the key outcomes is gaps, capacity building needs. And this is what the main thing that developing countries, SIDS and LDCs in particular, will get from the initial BTRs. So you don't have to report a perfect one, because what we are observing is that countries give consultants many thousands of dollars to produce these reports, when really and truly countries can use this money to build the capacity of their national experts. So submit what you can and allow experts who are reviewing your report to see and to discuss with you the capacity needs so that your second report will get better. Remember, it's improvement over time. Okay, so I really want to reiterate that. If you want the BUR experience, sure, we can help you once you have the funds and you can prepare it. But right now, the Jeff is ceasing to give funds, and the funds now are for the first BTR. For either one, we are here. What is important is that we help you to get to that point where you are comfortable. So please don't be on the defense. Don't be ashamed that you don't have the information to report. This is not part of the process. It's not punitive, as we said. Nobody is going to punish you and say you don't have this, you don't have that. This is not part of the process. The facilitative process is similar to the FSV. You come in, you present what you have, you state your needs, others ask you questions, but nobody is going to judge the information. Nobody is going to even say you haven't done enough. That's not what it is. Remember, it's limited by your own national capacities. So please be assured and feel comfortable that we are here to support you and really submit those reports as you can. Thanks, Yamikani. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jean. I've seen a last hand here. Then we close from there. Somaya, you have the floor.
I can't hear Somaya. Is she speaking?
Hello, can you
okay.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you
now
hear
we
me?
can. Yes,
Thank you so much for inviting me to attend this webinar. And thank you for Yamikani and the informative presentation from the presenters. Yes, I have a question regarding that. If we are looking at the core elements for ETF under Paris Agreement, as all parties should to have to report on their GHG inventory gases and on the indices, and also the technical expert review should be done for all parties, and multilateral consideration also should be done for all parties, developing countries and developed countries. I'm asking about our NDCs or LDCs and developing countries, because our NDCs are conditional, waiting for technical and financial support. So how can we report on our LDCs? NDCs assume that if one LDC country can have access to finance or technical capacity to undertake one activity of one sector. Let us say that it is the energy sector or forestry sector or waste sector. It is obliged to report on this only one activity, or say many activities, or waiting to complete the whole activities assumed or planned in their NDCs that had been submitted. Thank you so much.
If I understand you correctly, Somnia, your question had two elements, that some of the NDCs are conditional and that you are waiting for support to implement those actions. That's the first thing. So yeah, so that's the first thing. So what I would like to do, there's a team that is actually supporting NDCs, and I can further engage with them and then liaise with you. But what I can tell you is that in the BTR, you choose to report what you want. We have there in the BTR, there are indicators that you are going to use to report on the progress of implementation of your actions. Yeah, so you choose to report those mitigation actions that are being implemented based on indicators that you choose. So if you have conditional actions in there and you have not obtained support for that, you just simply state that. But if you have actions in your NDC that you are actually implementing in the BTR, what you will do is report on your progress. And if you need further assistance, then that is fine to state there. So the BTR is based on, remember, it's to your discretion. There are many flexibilities in the BTR. You report what it is you want to report as much as possible aligned with the reporting provisions, but you have the flexibility to report as you can. So I hope that regarding access to finance, I know that Jeff provides funding for the BTRs, but there's a lot of bilateral discussions going on in different institutions to provide funding for implementing the NDC. So perhaps that I will liaise the NDC team, and if you can give me your email, or mine is also there. I can liaise with you further on the specific conditional aspects. But in terms of reporting, you report what it is you would like. And nobody's going to ask you, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you that? You do what you can. And what you cannot, it shows that there's need for capacity building and finances. Does that address your question, Somnia?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'll give you my email. Okay.
Please do. Please do. Or you can take
Yeah.
mine. I'm going to write it in the chat so
Okay.
that anybody
Thank
can
you.
contact me. No problem on any
Yes,
other
sir.
questions that you may have. I've sent it to
Thank
the
you.
chat. Yes.
Yeah, thank you
Okay,
very
thank
much, Jean and Somaya, for the question. And also to just add on that, in the NDC tracking, there's a provision to indicate that these were conditional or unconditional NDCs.
Yeah.
So you can just indicate that maybe we didn't achieve this NDC target because it was conditional to support and the support wasn't available.
Exactly.
Yeah, just to add on what Jean has explained.
Thanks,
So,
Yamikani.
colleagues, thank you very much for the fruitful engagements. I know there are quite a lot of questions and conversation needed, but we have really set a good start and hoping to continue this conversation offline, as well as in the subsequent sessions which we are going to organize. On behalf of the LDC chair, I would like to really thank you all for the active participation. I understand this forms a good basis for negotiations at COP28. As you understand, there is quite a very important agenda item on financial and technical capacity provision to developing countries to report under the ETF. So the challenges and the solutions proposed here are going to strengthen the LDC's position towards that, and we are hoping that we are going to receive some adequate support for us to address all those challenges which have been identified. And let me also take this opportunity to thank Jean and all the presenters for taking your time. We understand how busy you are at the Secretariat, but for the LDCs, we haven't gotten any problem with the Secretariat support. You are always there with us when we have a need. And we are looking forward to continue this engagement, and we'll try our best to strengthen this collaboration and also organize frequently the sessions, as you have heard, which will be more interactive, not only by more presentations, but to make it more interactive. So we really appreciate, and please extend our gratitude to the heads there at the Secretariat. To you all, I wish you a fruitful day. And if you have any question or comments, don't hesitate to get in touch with us or the LDC chair. And also Jean has provided her contacts here. So have a fruitful day. Thank you very much. And don't forgetting the interpreters. So thank you, our interpreters, for your interpretation. Thank you. You have helped us a lot.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks, Yamikani, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye. Okay, see you then.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you, Yamikani. Thank you, John. Thank
Bye.
you all.
No problem. No
Bye.
problem.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you a lot. Bye.